Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. I'm Lorraine, standing in for David today. Welcome, everybody. Today's session is all about training and the virtual classroom. We're aiming to keep this down to around 30 minutes, so please do try to stay with us. But if you have to pop off anywhere and you want to catch up on what you missed afterwards, well, we'll be recording all of this live and we'll provide the link to you later, and please share it with any of your colleagues that you think might find it useful. So today I'm joined by Alex Robinson, who's our resident expert from Microsoft. Also joining me today is Mike Cowley-Friedman, who's our training expert here at the NEP, and a special guest, Frank Burns, DCI Frank Burns from Derbyshire Police, who will be telling us how Derbyshire are using this technology to help with their training. But we're going to start with Alex this afternoon. Alex, I think you have yet to fail to answer any of the questions that any of our viewers have sent in. So I'm not throwing down the gauntlet there to any of our listeners, but Alex has yet to be stumped by a question. So please put them into the Q&A and we'll answer them as we go along. But Alex, you're going to show us some of the tools that people involved in training and L&D might find useful, so over to you.
Perfect, thanks Lorraine, and challenge accepted to anyone listening on the call with their tricky questions. So I'm going to spend a short time just doing a sheep dip with you of all the tools that you can use to use learning within Office 365. And where we're going to start is the hub of learning, where you can have a central point to bring all these tools together. It's Microsoft Teams. So first of all, just a quick look at how you might want to set up your teams. You can have a team that's topic focused or subject focused, with your different channels perhaps reflecting different modules, or you could potentially want a scenario where you've got the team as a hand-in area. So utilising that private channel functionality, so each student gets a private area where they can share documents and posts with their teachers. Some key things to remember about using Teams for actually delivering training. You've got the meeting functionality, and one tool that's often forgot about is the whiteboard app. So when you share your screen, it can be found just on the far right hand corner, and this enables anyone who's internal to your organisation to draw and collaborate in a document at the same time in a whiteboard. New feature that's just landed on here is post-it notes and text boxes, so especially good for any workshops or brainstorming, and it's a great way to make a session more interactive than just sharing and talking screen. Just a note of where to find it is on that far right hand corner. Another thing you might want to consider using whilst in a meeting in Teams to make it more interactive is you do have the chat bar at the side. And if you've enabled Microsoft Forms, you can quickly send a poll here. So just coming to Forms, it's asking me to create a new poll. And we're going to take a look in a minute how we might want to use Forms to also do a quiz. And this allows me just to send a quick poll to anyone in my teaching session that we can see the results in real time. Another thing you might want to consider using in chat, and same as Forms, this can go in the post area of a channel too, is you can send praise out as well. So to highlight any good work that's been done by a student. Now, these are badges that we have pre-created in Microsoft, but we've got a new update landing very shortly, which enables you to customize your badges. So we could have some police-specific praise badges to obtain. And then I can just type the name of who I want to send my praise to. I can customize a message, and the whole of our class can help show their praise for that student. So some nice things within meetings you might want to consider using. We're just going to dive back to the actual team now and show how we can link some more apps into our central module and learning area. So I've set up my team, I've got my channels that fall underneath here, and the key thing you really want to focus on within an L&D use case is the tabs that run along the top of your channels. And to customize these tabs, you just need to come to the plus sign, and this will give you a list of all the available apps across Office 365. Now do be aware, I do have the full fat version, so I've got some external options here. But as you enable them, you should have this full Office suite at the top. So popular things you might want to link in. First of all, I'm going to start with Planner, and this was a really good thing that was showed by some people from Derbyshire Police to me. So to make sure that people know what's upcoming on their module or exciting things that are coming when we're stuck working from home, they use Planner to label the buckets as different months and highlight all the key deadlines or all the things that people had to do in that time period. And as a person taking part, it means you get this really nice schedule view of how everything lands in a calendar as well. Next app I'm going to show you is a link to Stream. So you might be aware that any meetings that we ran, so like when we had the whiteboard up just shortly, you can record that and that would land in Stream. But Stream is always great to have pre-recorded meetings. So if I click on this video here, I'll be able to view my meeting. So this is a pre-recorded session, and we can see here we've got closed caption options as well. So if we don't have any audio switched on, we've forgotten our headphones in the office, we can read through what the video is covering. So Stream is that great central platform, great for quick little videos, and it's super easy to link into a learning team. Now, this is one of my favourite tools for learning. We're back to forms, but in this case, we're using it in the context of a quiz. So within forms, you can actually set up a quiz format. You can give points for the each questions and select right answers. And once you submit, you can actually choose to view your results as a student directly. So I can see what score I've got. If I'm a student, I can collate all these, if I'm a teacher, I can collate all these results on the back end, and I can export the results and use them to produce my own graphs on, say, trends and what I'm seeing in the results. So it's a great way of doing quick knowledge checks, and again, we can link it all into this central team space. We're going to look at next OneNote. So OneNote is an online digital notebook. You can set up different sections for different parts of your OneNote, and it's fully searchable as well. So it's great for putting lots of links in, lots of large pieces of information, and you can change this organisation as you go along. Now, there is one thing to consider when using OneNote for learning, and that's that there is a option called Class Notebook. So to do this, you just need to go to the online version of Notebook. Just go to classnotebook.microsoft.com, and it presents you with two different spaces. So you can have a collaboration space where teachers and students can interact together, a content library that's purely locked down for teachers to direct what content goes in here, no students can edit it, and you can then have individual student working areas. So similar to my private channel in my team, Alex Wilbur here can just see his own 3 sections within this notebook, and you can see you can also link this back into Teams as well. So the last thing I want to show you of what you could use for learning is a tool called Microsoft Sway. So Sway is a great way to produce a document that has lots of rich multimedia in it. So if I click on here, I'll be able to see all the different, this is an example Sway, so I can see when I've included pictures and videos. I can scroll through it vertically, or I can click here just on this book at the side to flick through the chapters if I just want to jump to a certain area. But it means you can put high storage videos, lots of pictures, and it's not going to get blocked as an attachment for being too big, as you just send it out with a simple link. Sway is super easy to build out. It's very modular, so you can choose your titles, you can add your pictures and videos, and you can even embed things such as quizzes in here as well. One caveat with Sway is that it is US data housed at the minute, so do be careful what content you put in there, but a great option for a newsletter updating on L&D or what's coming. So thank you for that time today, guys. That was a whirlwind tour of L&D tools within Office 365. I'm going to hand back now to Lorraine, who's got a special guest for us today.
I have got a special guest, but before we move on to that, I just was a question about the whiteboard from our listeners, saying that they thought that the whiteboard was blocked by the NEP blueprint. So is that the case, Alex?
Yes, I don't believe it's blocked. I think it's being added to the next design refresh to be included. Do correct me if I'm wrong, David or Mike. So not blocked. I just don't think it's not been on the design just yet.
And somebody asking about using it with police cadets for sort of 13 to 18-year-olds. It looks like the kind of tool that would appeal to them.
Yes, so we have, you might have heard, we have lots of schools and universities that use Teams and Whiteboard to deliver training. So I think it would be a good tool to deliver that with.
Great, thanks very much. Well, I'm always first to the felt tip pen, so I love the sound of the whiteboard. I'm going to have a practice with that. Right, so moving on to my other two guests, which Mike and Frank. But Frank, let's come to you first. Tell us a little bit about your background and what your early thoughts have been on using this new technology.
Hi, afternoon everybody. Yeah, Frank Burns. I'm a DCI at Derbyshire Police. I've been in 26 years, so give you a bit of a sense of that. The very early days when I was a police officer, we just moved from writing with pen and ink and moving on to our first computers. So seeing this technology now, particularly in the last year or so, starting to emerge is really exciting. I've been reasonably okay with technology through my career, but we have some real challenges in the police around people feeling confident around it and feeling vulnerable. And I think some of the stuff we're talking about now, once you get your head around it, it's quite intuitive, and hopefully some of that confidence and people feeling worried about it will start dissipating.
So can you give us a specific example of how you've used it in your sort of day-to-day working and how it's compared to what you've done previously?
So for me, particularly, I had a challenge where I had to deliver some training for the whole of the force, so 3,700 people, mandatory training. When I was given this task to do, we didn't have Teams. COVID pushed us into that very, very quickly, but the whole organisation now has access to Teams, although it's a very light version. Some of the functionality Alex was talking about, we haven't got yet, although quite exciting to see that when it comes out. But I soon realised by using Teams, I was going to be able to achieve what I have been set out to do far easier than I ever imagined. So to give you a sense that it took 6 months to start thinking about what I needed to deliver and how I might go about it. And then when Teams come along, I almost just could start afresh and literally a one-man band to get it up and running with a bit of support every now and again during the live events. So at the moment, out of 3,700, just in the last few months, I've covered over 1,000 people, and these are the really hard to reach people. These are the people on shifts who are operational, and I have to say I've never seen that ability to reach these people so flexibly and with such agility in 26 years. These are really have been barriers to us being able to build capability and upskill our people. So for me, it just opens all that up, and that's without using some of the stuff Alex was talking about, literally just having these meetings and being able to talk.
And what do you think the actual tangible benefits to the force have been? I mean, you know, you talk about the numbers of people that you've been able to deal with there, but presumably there's sort of, you know, efficiency savings to be made as well. terms of time and even money?
Oh yeah, definitely. Just arranging things physically, getting people to places. For anybody in an L&D environment will know, so that's a real challenge. And particularly in the environment now, we've got a lot of people working from home. It just makes everything accessible, and this sense of community in a virtual way, although it sounds a little bit kind of Star Trek-y, it works. There's just a different. There's some positives about it. Some negatives around it. Not having a group of people in front of you, but I think the positives far outweigh that in terms of people being able to adapt how we access people and timings, etc. So to give you a bit of an idea, I've done a training session with over 100 people. And I've just been 1 hour of that, and somebody else, I think Adam's listening into this now, who's done the full day's training. He's been able to just summon me for that 1 hour. I can deliver my bit and remove and come away. We can bring leaders in who've got perhaps short on time. We can get them to come in at any moment. And at the same time, I've just by using that method and building into existing training days that we've got planned, I was able to get to about 800 people. So the remainder there, I'm going to set up a series of 1 hour sessions where people can just drop in different times of the day, different days of the week, publish those sessions and say, at your convenience, register your interest and come along, and I can make them fit in with me as well. So over the next 2 weeks, I've got 6 hours of sessions, 6 hours, and I'll probably get about 500 people with a lot of agility.
You sound like the sort of person who has really embraced this. But what about your peers within the organisation? Has the force been able to provide adequate levels of training and awareness for people like you so that other people can replicate what you've done?
I think sometimes initially it's just a bit of having a bit of an interest in it and seeing the opportunity it presents. I think after that, you'll always get people who will do that, and there's a number of us in Derbyshire Police who are kind of adopting it pretty quickly. But I think it comes from people taking part in the training, and they will see those same opportunities, and then it's about us just linking in and saying, this is how you do it. You know, you're doing some workshops. It's going to be word of mouth. There are training available to us, but like a lot of these things, it's about just diving in and getting on and doing it and discovering things as you go along and not worrying too much about that. I think that's a good way of learning what the capabilities are.
I'm wondering whether whether there's any barriers for your students, but you know, those that aren't perhaps as tech savvy. You talked about out of the 3,000, you've already done 1,000. Do you think the first 1,000 have been the ones who are confident with the technology, and what more can be done for those that perhaps aren't quite as comfortable with it?
I think this is just about their peers being there, saying, no, you don't need to worry, or helping them along, giving some really clear guidance when we're putting out the meeting planner to say how to log on. So that's been a learning curve for us as well. It's just, you know, when we first started using Teams as an organisation back in April time, you know, the sense of concern about this really disruptive way of traditionally where we've done things using Outlook, suddenly there was some worry, and then when people started using it, it became normalised and became business as usual. I think that's the route it goes. It becomes less of a concern, and everybody starts using it, and then people are discovering elements of it bit by bit. So I think people get pulled along eventually.
Because of current circumstances with COVID and a lot of people working from home, all of this was massively escalated, and I think people have really appreciated what it's been able to provide. But how would you see the future when we eventually do get back to, you know, a sort of normal? Do you think that we will ever return to training in the way it was traditionally done, or do you think everybody will adopt and stick with this?
Well, I think this is a game changer, a permanent one. We've already, identified within our organisation the amount of positivity around some of the use of Teams and Office 365, and this we haven't even really dipped into its sort of deeper functionality in terms of how we've been able to basically stay on top of our business during these really challenging times. And I know some forces have struggled, so we were lucky and fortunate where we could get the Office 365 Lite rolled out very, very quickly, and allowed us to carry on business. But in terms of training, we have now got to relook at the whole structure and how we build our training strategy now. And I just think it just, as a manager at different levels over the years when I've had different teams, one of the most frustrating things for me is not being able to upskill the teams when they need it. And I think this is breaking down a lot of barriers. Sounds like I'm working for Microsoft. I'm not. It's genuine. It just opens up and removes a lot of these things that we've been in the way for many years. It'll take a while for people to get around that sense of actually training now is available. So all the people who complain about it, if we don't get enough training, I mean, the computer-based training, the stuff I'm delivering now, I was thinking about doing a video version of it, mini bite-sized videos, so I've got a bit of a legacy thing afterwards. I think I'll still do that. But what I realised was it's actually just easy enough for me to make myself available for an hour and a drop-in session, and they've got access to a live human, albeit we're not in front of each other. And I think people prefer that. The feedback I've had, and Adam, who's run the training days, and a few others, is they actually really enjoy, and once they get used to this method of us communicating with each other and delivering some training.
Well, this is probably a good point to bring in Mike then, because Mike, we would really want to encourage all forces to adopt this and to make the most of what it's offering, but not just for now, for the future. So how do you think the next few months, how we can develop this and how the NEP can play a role in helping forces adopt this technology?
No, that's a really interesting question, and I think the conversations that I've been fortunate enough to have with Force L&D departments and the program managers shows that through necessity, Microsoft 365 has supported the L&D area, but I think now forces, as they start to use it, and Frank's a great example of this, where they've actually begun to experience the benefits of scheduling courses quicker, getting people to events in an environment that they can learn, but also seeing the benefits of having that delivery and the learning being transitioned into everyday business activity and operational activity, I think shows that there's a real chance that this can play a part of a blended learning approach. So one of the questions that you raised quite rightly, and I do agree with Frank, this is a game changer. I think now Force L&D departments can start to look at this as an added solution to the classroom and to traditional e-learning. And I think ultimately the learner, the officer or member of staff at the end of the day can have an opportunity to learn in a way that perhaps will suit them a little bit better than traveling a large distance, having their learning and then traveling back. So there's some great opportunities. And when we were putting this this webinar together, because we were limited to the 30 minutes, there was so much that we could talk about. And I know there's some great work that's going on with forces already around the L&D opportunities and how they're delivering this to new recruits right the way through to senior leaders. So what we're going to be running on the 12th of November is a workshop for Force L&D departments and project teams and frankly anyone else who'd like to join, where we can start looking a little bit more detail as to how forces are using the different applications within Microsoft 365 to support learning and the delivery of learning to their officers and staff, and also start thinking about, well, what else is needed? How can we start taking this forward in a way that we can almost embed it into the culture so it is seen as part of the norm? And of course, using that Microsoft 365 as a learning application or a learning tool can then help embed the different aspects of Microsoft 365 into business as usual. So the workshop will take place, as I say, on the 12th of November. It'll be an opportunity for the great and the good to get together. Hopefully we'll get some forces to showcase what they've done for different aspects of learning. And we really want to start a conversation that will carry on, where we can start collaborating across Force L&D departments to start sharing why they're doing it, and hopefully helping each other develop their skills and capabilities as an opportunity to deliver great modern learning to recruits and established officers and staff.
Well, that's great, and I can see that David's put a link to how you can sign up to that in the thread, and we'll share that more widely. And I think we've created a form so people can sign up to that, but that also gives people the opportunity to suggest ideas for the workshop, because these events are for you out there. So, you know, if there's something in particular that you'd like to hear more about, or indeed if you've already been using the tools and you've used them very successfully and you would like to share that with your colleagues, we'd love to hear from you, wouldn't we, Mike?
Absolutely. So we'll be sending a note to all the L&D contacts that we have, and also the project managers that we work with on a daily and a weekly basis. But if there are other people within your force that you think would benefit from taking part in that workshop, please forward it on. You know, really, the more the merrier. We really want to get a great conversation across all policing around this.
Great. There's one question in the Q&A that David has answered, I think, but I will just repeat it for the benefit of everyone, about basic user guides. I think as we move through the programme, a lot of people are going to become very familiar with this technology and very adept at using it, and then we're going to get other people who are perhaps a little bit slower to adopt it, or you know, forces are at different stages. So Alex, I think it is really worth remembering, isn't it, that we need to provide masterclasses, and we also need to remember that there are people that still need, you know, very basic training. So yeah. Microsoft, you know, you can cater for all those different levels.
Yeah, so I think we're just showing the Enabling Centre at the minute. So there's loads of great simple articles. A lot of this has been policified as well. So ranging from the basics of how to use to a more expert level. So do recommend signing up to the Enabling Centre that has been created by the NEP. And this links off to a lot of Microsoft created materials as well. So, you know, it's constantly going to be updated and you know, with any new product releases too.
To that. This has been slightly different to the webinars that we've done before. It's probably been a little bit more chatty, but I hope everyone has found it informative. Thanks very much, Frank, for joining us. I think it's really worth us hearing from people, you know, actually at the coalface using this technology day in, day out. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us today, and hopefully you can join us for our workshop on the 12th. Are there any final hints and tips, Frank, that you'd like to throw out there on this Wednesday before we wrap up?
I just think I didn't get any training. I just dived in there and I got started. I think it's the best way. I know it's probably not from an L&D people, it's probably not the most structured way, but it seems to work. It will work for some people, but yeah, just jump in.
Fantastic, thank you. And Mike, any final words?
I think to echo Frank's point of view just then, really start exploring the tools. And there's a great saying from another force when we talked about L&D, and they said you're only limited by your imagination. This is a great opportunity to move things in a really positive, modern way. So yeah, just get dug in and use the Enabling Centre. But if there's any gaps or if there's anything you want, just get in contact and we'd be really happy to help.
And Alex, we still didn't find a question to stump you.
No, next week, Lorraine. Challenge lives on.
Well, that's it, 12:30. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really grateful for you giving up your time there to be with us on this Wednesday. We will see you hopefully next week when we will be talking about intelligence briefing and tasking. But from all of us at the NEP,